We are live with Jay Shaw and Nicholas Alexander Karadza, my brother. Do you have a middle name, Jay?
I do, but it's under lock and key.
Is it?
Yes.
Ooh, you use it for a password. You must be using it for a password. Hey, Nick? That's my Turkish coffee.
I know.
is
It's
that?
nice. I like it.
This is a gift from Egypt, and you make Turkish coffee with this. And
I wasn't offered one. I'm sure.
No, I haven't fired the thing up yet. I need to get some. I think I have to get some rubbing alcohol to put it in there to burn. And I was just telling Nick, actually, it's funny.
It's probably not rubbing alcohol. It's probably like kerosene or something. No.
Tequila.
I don't know the
You wouldn't
instructions.
use
The instructions I got where you can go to Shoppers Drug Mart and get like rubbing alcohol.
Oh,
to burn.
really? I had no
I
idea.
don't know if that's accurate. I'm gonna try it on the weekend, so I'll tell you.
Oh boy.
I'll tell you if I have to increase the insurance in my house before I start this. Hey, he's a property manager. We should say if you make Turkish coffee on an open flame in your house, do you have to change any of your like tenants insurance?
No, you want to talk to Todd O'Donnell about that? He'll tell you.
Yes. Hello.
I think insurance companies love open flames. That's their favorite thing to have.
Hi, I have an open flame always in my house. It's not a candle. Do I need to change my insurance?
And I'm running with scissors.
And I run around in circles with scissors, half drunk.
We had in one of our early lease agreements, we had a portable hot plate. It's like a specific clause about not having portable hot plates in the rooms.
Because I think that's because
at that time they were popular.
Well, I think it was popular because I swear when we took over that student rental, there was grown adults living in some of the student rooms, and they had hot plates because they were using that room as like their whole living quarters.
Oh, maybe yeah. I forget.
When we very first of the property you're talking about, where we put that in, I swear we were young, so we didn't really know, but I think there was like.
So you were those landlords, were you?
What, the landlords didn't know what they were doing? Yeah. If that's what you're asking, then yes, 100% that was us.
We had no clue what we were doing. We were petrified and clueless, but I think we had some older guys. Like late 20s, early 30s. And
I don't remember, but maybe.
I think they were living in there in the hot plate. But yeah, that was funny. Hot plates. People had little fridges, hot plates, the air conditioners in their unit. Basically,
little fridges are still fairly common, I think.
Yeah, I think everybody wants a little.
They call those beer fridges now.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's a good point.
So when I went to
I didn't get the update on the little fridge.
When I went to university, the companies, they had those companies that would rent out those fridges, and they had two sets of flyers. Ones that they would give to the parents with, you could put your milk and your food in there, and then the other ones that they gave to the students that was full of beer and liquor.
So hold on, there was a company that rented those fridges for student rooms?
For the year. You could rent them for, I think it was like $250 for the year. And I forgot what the name of the company was, but they would show up with like a U-Haul, and it would be full of these bar fridges, and they had a couple different sizes.
I never thought about that.
Did you go to school in the States?
Oh, I went to school out east.
Wow.
Yeah, in Nova
because
Scotia.
those things, to buy those things, I mean, think now they're probably $500, maybe not even that. So that time they were even less. It was probably 60% of the value of a fridge. The numbers would work out on that, even if you got 2 years out of it.
Are you from out east?
No, I grew up in Northern Ontario.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I guess maybe there's probably nothing going on out there. So everybody was just getting hammered and they needed their own supply.
I went to visit a friend in university when he was out there. Yeah, and that's basically why we went to visit him.
Social. They're just very social. Why do we paint them with a bad...
No, it's not painting anyone. It's funny. I'm trying to think of the furthest east I've been in Canada, and it was once.
Montreal.
No, I went to Quebec City in high school.
Pickering.
And since then, it's basically Montreal. I have not been further east than Canada.
You're missing out.
We fly right over and go right to Europe. Oh. We just skip it all. And then we don't go really to Vancouver often. We basically are barely Canadians. We don't even know Canada.
We do go to the U.S. much more than we go to anywhere in Canada.
There you go.
We know a lot of the U.S. and we know Europe. I feel like if I was lost in Ontario, I might not know where I was. What country is this? Where am I? Anyway, I feel like we were drinking this Turkish coffee.
No kidding.
And anyway, back to the Turkish coffee. It's a really thick coffee. And when we used to visit our relatives in Croatia, because in that part of the world, it has an Italian influence because the Romans kind of like ran things through there. But then the Ottoman Empire, like there's a Hungarian, like they eat goulash there, Hungarian influence. There's all these different influences because basically always under attack, always different countries kind of ruling that different area. And we would go visit family over there. And if we went to visit a friend with our family in that area, they would often brew up Turkish coffee, and then some of the older ladies there, after you would drink the coffee, they would read the bottom of the coffee cup because the Turkish coffee would just leave this little stain, kind of like an espresso cup might, at the bottom, and they would read it like a tea leaf or like the palm of your hand and give you like a palm reading kind of thing from your Turkish coffee and tell you your future, Jay. So if you're ever confused about where interest rates are going next, what I'm trying to tell you is you need to drink Turkish coffee and find some lady to tell you where interest rates are going.
Well, I was thinking we could have that if we have any tenant-related issues on how we should deal with them. We'll just brew the Turkish coffee and we'll read the tea leaves.
Yeah,
not looking so good for you, Mr. Tenant.
So what is going on? So we were chatting before we started recording about what are you seeing out there? Like now we're entering, I think we were talking about like, as you get into Christmas, it's a slower time. First of all, the whole market's slower, but it's a slower time of year naturally from now until Christmas. How are you finding things if someone does have a vacancy in a property? First of all, are you seeing a lot of vacancies in the geographical area that you work in? And what's the demand like for those vacancies? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, no. So I think the market's been transitioning since March, right? I think the peak we saw was, up to February was the peak of the market. And then
you're talking about real estate prices or demand from tenants?
Real estate prices,
okay.
Right? Which kind of leads into what the demand was or is, right? So what we saw once March hit, from March to about September, we saw no change in the market. Like the rental market was still strong. We were seeing properties being filled roughly 30 days or so, 30 to 40 days. We work the Hamilton Niagara market. So that's kind of just for context what we're doing. And then as we go into the fall, it's typically the slower season. So once there's a big rush for everyone to move for September 1. And the big reason for that is that tenants want to get their kids in the right school district. There's the back to school, back to work, right? I mean, that was thrown out the window with COVID and, working remotely and stuff like that. But we've seen those principles stay true. What we're seeing now is we're middle of November now. It's starting to slow a little bit, but that's seasonal, right? The other thing is that we've seen a consistent demand of properties and of tenants, right? So, what we're seeing is similar to what's been going on in previous years, but we're seeing properties still rent, right? And I think the biggest thing now is what do you need to do? Because at the end of the day, you can't just throw it on Facebook, throw it on Kijiji, throw it on rentals.ca and hope for the best. You have to differentiate yourself from the market and from your competitors, right? I mean, a lot of Rockstar members are in the markets that we service, and a lot of Rockstar members are our clients. And we say to them, we have to find ways to differentiate yourself because a lot of the properties that we represent are very similar. They're very similar in finishes and location, and it's all the principles that you and Nick teach. But if we can't just be on price. You have to find two things equal. What's going to push that tenant to go with your property over, the other member's property. And
what are some of the things you're giving me flashbacks to? I think when we really first started, I guess in 2008, I think we went through a little brief period where we had some investors actually offer half a month's rent. Do you remember that period? It was really brief where some people were offering incentives, financial incentives to rent a house, and that all disappeared and we haven't seen it since. But we remember a time when people were kind of doing that kind of thing just to differentiate and get attention on their property. So you're saying right now people have to do that to
not necessarily have to do it, but it's if you're sitting on there, we're not at 30 to 40 days right now. When we go into the slower season, it's usually north of 45. So you're roughly about 60 days or so to fill a property, right? In the slower season.
And when is the slowest season? December?
It's between December and February is the slowest. So basically once September 1st hits, demand goes down each and every month. No one wants to move in the dead of winter. No one wants to move in January, February, and then March we start to see that pick up again.
Okay, so if I had a vacancy I knew that was coming in between December and end of January, what would be some of the things, and I was going to hire you guys, what would be some of the things that you would like me to do or say or to have in the house to differentiate it from other properties?
Yeah. So one of the questions we always get asked, it's should we stage it, right? Should we stage it? And we always say, no, you don't need to, right? I mean, but the things that you have to do is you have to put things out that people will see. They're looking at two members' houses, right? Price is obviously a big one. But price is always number 4. There's 4 things that move a property. Number 1 is the location. Number 2 is the photos, right? Number 3 is the copy. So how you present and tell the story of the property. And number 4 is price. Price is always number 4. It's not number 1. So, location we can't really do a lot about. Photos is something you can do. So it's let's not cheap out. Let's not use iPhone photos, right? And that's something that I teach in the class here. It's that spend
Just so you know, when you're talking about stuff, there's a whole bunch of people here that are listening to this podcast that are not Rockstar members, or not just so when you're explaining stuff, just so you know.
Yeah. Okay.
But keep going. So those are the four things.
So those are the four things. I mean, one thing I would say is do professional photos. Spend the money. You're likely going to spend roughly about $150 on photos. But the benefit of that is that you can use those photos over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So it's not just the $150 and it's done. You can easily use them on the next turn and potentially the next turn, right? Spend the money now and do it.
That's such a good point, because when you have a property that's vacant, you're always scrambling for freaking photos. And good photos are hard to take, even on an iPhone lately with a wide angle lens. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be as good as a professional photographer getting in there taking the photos. And a lot of the photos, you're so right on this, and the reason I think this is hitting home, we were just dealing with a property where the photos were kind of garbage. And people didn't realize the importance of those photos. Because if you could walk into a small room and take a picture, even with an iPhone on the wide angle lens, and if it's vacant too, then it just kind of looks really crappy. So good pictures really matter.
Yeah. I still use mine on one of my old family home. I don't know, we moved out of that thing like 8 or 9 years ago. And the last time that I was looking for people, they've been there now for a few years. I think I've only been through 2 sets of tenants. So maybe it was 6 years after I took the photos. I used them again. And if these people left tomorrow, I'd use the same photos I took 9 years ago. I mean, totally. The flooring's roughly, it's all close enough to the same. There's been a few things that have been changed, but it's close enough, and they were all good photos,
The challenge is, you spend all this money to acquire the property, and then when we go and say, if we work together, we hire a photographer that goes out and does all the professional photos, right? That was a decision we made a couple years ago because we thought it was the right thing to do. We got away, when I first started the company, got away with, the iPhone photos, and they look good, right?
You can get it done. It's just not serving you. It's not.
Well, we've all got the iPhone. It's all, three lenses, stuff like that. They take good photos, right? But if you want to differentiate yourself from the crowd, spend the money. But it's we spend this money to do it, right? To buy the property and put all this money into it. And it's you want me to spend $150? You're crazy. And it's no, I do want you to do it because we're business owners. We're not landlords. Right?
That was the running joke in here for so long. We're why can we do such a great job of working with investors to get them to buy a beautiful property, but we can't get them? At the time, it was $40 to run a classified ads to actually rent out the property. They would complain on the $40 for the classified ad.
Or the bumping on Kijiji.
I'm not going to spend the $5 to bump this thing. But on the photos, you know what sometimes served us well? If we had a property where for whatever reason we weren't getting a lot of traction with that property, we would take, if we had a video with it, we actually would take the video down, because what we found was happening was that people would see the video, and through a video, sometimes it's not like real life. So the video might be beautiful, but they're concluding through the video that, oh my gosh, they've seen enough here. They saw the photos and they've seen a video, property's not for them. And when properties were slow, we found taking the video off actually helped us and got more people to the property.
Some people actually excluded themselves thinking they couldn't afford the property when in fact they could. We saw that as well. So we realized that, it was more important to get people to the property, which is the photos serve that purpose more so than the video felt like it was, they were taking a tour and thinking that was it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so good pictures, and then on copy.
So copy, you want to spend time writing it, because the biggest thing that everyone wants to do once they purchase the property, or if they're relisting it, right? They want to get it up as quickly as possible. I got to get it rented. I got to get it up as quickly as possible. And what you want to do is you need to spend some time writing this. And what I tell people is you want to spend roughly 20 to 30 minutes writing this thing, because just like buying your principal residence, it's an emotional experience. Well, tenants are, likely moving a family into there. It's an emotional experience for them. So you have to kind of tug at those heartstrings. You have to use those, surrounding words, the surrounding language. You have to paint the picture on why they're going to want to move into your property as opposed to the other one. We used to use language like home sweet home in the North End, private garden oasis. We used to use words and phrases like that would tug at heartstrings and help paint the picture of why they needed to be in your property as opposed to someone else's.
Really, garden oasis.
I know. It's just flowery.
You liked it. You liked it.
It wasn't me.
But no, I think things that also worked for us in that regard around the copy was we would always say major intersections, shopping malls, time to a GO train station, time to a major other intersection, just so that if someone was looking at a place, they wouldn't rule it out thinking, oh, I can't live there because it's going to take me too long to get to work or to wherever they were going. So we would do stuff like that as well. So we would try to write the copy and put in like these other things that sometimes were kind of missed on properties. But I think that's a good point. Nick always believed in painting the picture that you describe, like writing about the backyard. I remember that one house, Nick, up on the Hamilton Mountain. Remember we discovered we had a pear tree?
You discovered that. You love that pear tree more than anything.
Oh, really?
My God, there's a pear tree. They can sit here and look at the pear tree.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing.
I like the patio in the back. I was like, as long as they can sit on the patio, who cares if there's a tree there?
Yeah. So in the copy, we wrote that you could pick your own pears. That you had a pear tree in the backyard.
People did like it. Some people came to the property thinking, "Oh, is that the pear tree?"
So this stuff, the Oasis comments, is that my garden oasis over there? And you could say yes. You could put a sign and saying this is your garden oasis here.
We had this property. I think it was last summer. We were filling it for an investor, and it was a triplex, and it was a studio on the 3rd floor. And I swear there had to be 100 stairs going to the top. And the
what'd you say? Workout included every day.
No, but you know how we described it is that be in the best shape of your life, climbing 100 stairs up and down every morning and every night. And people came and they did either one of two things.
Counted the stairs.
They counted the stairs, or they came and they were like, oh my God, all those stairs. And you're like, it's the first line in the ad. So it's proof that sometimes you can have great copy and they still won't.
Yeah. I can totally see people counting the stairs. On that note, with like duplexes, legal second suite, accessory apartments and stuff like that, do you manage those kinds of properties as well? How are you handling noise complaints? Do you have a way, are you setting expectations before people move in? Or do you not manage properties where you're like, clearly this is going to be a problem with noise with the upstairs and downstairs person? I just say that because some properties that we've owned, the floor, it might as well be a freaking amplifier from one side of the house or one level of the house to the other side of the house.
To be honest, we don't really have a lot of problems with that. We don't have a lot of people calling to complain or concerns about it. I think as part of the screening process, what we do is we're very upfront with the people, like especially like the people moving in downstairs, where it's like if you have a family with 2 young kids, like my little guy's 5 and he has 2 lead feet, so I kind of pity the guy who lives in the basement at my house. But it's like I said that right out in the front end. I'm like, listen, I have for me anyways, I'm like, I have 2 young kids, like they get up early. And he was a single guy and he was fine with that. But like in our vetting process, what we do is sometimes we get the tenants, they ask the questions. They're like, who lives upstairs? And it's like, we have to be careful in terms of what we can say and how much we can say for, privacy reasons and stuff like that. But what we can say is that there is a young family that lives upstairs, right? They do have kids, like things like that. So that then the applicant can choose whether they screen themselves in, screen themselves out. And I mean, the benefit to working with a property management company is that if that's not a fit for them, like we had, an applicant lose out on a property last week, and they were, disappointed. We're like, hey, we have one two blocks over for $100 cheaper, so we were able to redirect them over there.
Cool.
Yeah.
What are you doing on credit? What's your favorite credit screening technique now? Is it a service, or what are you doing for that?
Yeah, so actually a really interesting story. So we were really early adopters.
We'll decide if it's an interesting story, Jay, okay? You tell a story and then we will tell you if it's... Sorry,
is that what the Turkish
I'm bothering you
Is that
today.
What the Turkish coffee is saying?
I had too much coffee. Go ahead. My apologies.
We were early adopters at Neighborly back in 2016 when they first came to Canada. And then this year they had a bit of a technology glitch and a staffing issue. So we made a switch. We switched our provider in, end of April, and we switched to another provider. And that's worked out really well for us. Like, I mean, we've been able to get the service that we want. We get the, credit reports we want in a timely manner. And the user interface is really, positive. Like the applicants like it. It's quick, it's seamless. And then once we have that, we get.
Which one are you using now?
We're using a program called Certain.
And then what is it? So it's telling you income. Does it do social media checks?
So it does income, background, social media, credit score, sure there's one I'm forgetting here.
Is that one? I can't remember. I think it's Very Fast that's doing the one where it checks your bank accounts. Like if the tenant.
No, we don't.
You don't do that one.
We've tried that. We've tried it a couple times.
Didn't work.
So the problem was this, right? Is that we beta tested it with a few people and we got some pretty hard pushback. And I had a really
because the tenants didn't want to give up their banking information.
Tenants didn't want to give it out, number one, and I had a really hard time myself, like trying to push that, because like if it were me, I wouldn't be prepared or willing to give that information, right?
Yeah,
you want to pull my credit? Great, pull my credit, but it's like you want me to link my bank account? I'm like,
Okay, so for anyone listening who's not aware, some of these services, if the tenant puts in their banking information for TD or BMO or RBC, there's actually APIs, like which is an application programming interface for the techie crowd out there, where these services will tie into the bank, which is, I didn't know this was legal, and pull out their deposits for payroll and see things like if they're buying stuff at Pet Value or whatever, so that you can see if they're buying pets. If they're telling you they have no pets, but they're shopping at Pet Value, it becomes.
Well, I think I told you that story last time, right? We had a client and he asked us to run a secondary application using that program, and the tenant didn't disclose that they had pets, but when we ran their credit through that,
these purchases,
no, there was a vet bill.
Oh, got
right?
it.
Oh, that's funny.
And
yeah, no, where we heard that from is that's one they use in their like sales pitch of why this works. But I hadn't heard that story before.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why they use it in their pitch. It's a good one.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
But I can see on a few tenants recently, we've had pushback too, where we've just heard the tenants.
I could see that. That wouldn't be my thing either. But
I think maybe the younger crowd gets more and more used to it. But I think maybe if you haven't been through that before, you're like, what are you asking for? Okay, so how are you checking income then? Pay stubs and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so they have to upload either an employment letter or 2 recent pay stubs within the last 30 days.
Got it.
And then we put that into the algorithm, and it basically kind of gives us a thumbs up, thumbs down.
How are you verifying those? Because those pay stubs are so fraudulent. Like it's so common for them to be fraudulent. In rentals, not just in mortgages.
Yeah. No, good question. So we actually phone the company, right? And we don't phone the company with the phone number that's on the application.
Yeah, you look it up online.
We look it up online, we Google it, and then we phone the main line. And that's challenging too, because like for privacy laws, it's kind of like they can't tell you anything. They're like, we can confirm they work here and that's pretty much it, right? You can't, like, we can ask like, what's their title? We can't tell you that. Can you confirm that their salary is X?
I kind of agree with that. I mean, like, I don't know, there's got to be some line.
Well, if someone's calling just out of the blue,
yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's why you do get employment letters. But if you're calling someone, you can confirm they work there with that line, and they do have some sort of proof of employment from that company. Generally, you can get, you get an idea that there's some truth to it.
It'd be like someone calling here and saying, "Can you confirm your brother drives a pickup truck and wears flannel shirts now and listens to country music?"
Yeah,
I'd be like, "Yeah, that's exactly what."
You forgot the cowboy hats, cowboy boots with spurs, and the rifle.
No, you don't have the cowboy boots yet.
What
have
about
you seen his truck outside, Jay?
You have a truck?
Oh yeah,
Can't miss it.
Oh yeah,
Even a midlife crisis?
No,
maybe
we should talk. We should talk about the rifles and the shotgun in the back of the truck too.
Yeah, you don't want to mess around with Nick.
Well, there was an election the other night.
Oh, jeez. So where were we? Income checks. Yeah, the vet bills. So you're getting pay stubs. You call and verify. You said upload. Is that to your property management company's like portal itself, or somewhere else? A service you're.
So they get what happens. So they pay for the application. So we charge for the application.
Okay.
The third party charges for the application, and then they get a link by email to fill out the application, which goes to the third party provider's website, and then they take them through.
So it's getting it all done there.
Exactly. And then they provide us a package.
That's certain doing that.
Correct.
Okay.
And then they provide us the package with the application, the credit report, all the documents, and then we package that and we underwrite that. And by that, what we mean is we send it to the owner, right? We basically say, here, we summarize everything. Here's what's good. Here's what's not so good. We make a recommendation.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, it's up to the owner to say, I'm comfortable moving forward, or I'd like to keep looking.
A challenge we often had with investors was a sense of urgency. If they were filling the property themselves and they actually got some people to fill out applications when they were showing it, sometimes they would wait like 3 or 4 or 5 days to run stuff, and then wait 2 or 3 days to maybe call us to get our opinion on some questions they had or whatever. So A week would go by, and whenever we discovered a week, we're like, we don't even have to have this conversation. We're positive the tenant has moved on to find something else. Do you have like a specific timeline or strategy that you like to work with? Yeah. What is that?
Yeah. We basically put in that email that summarizes everything, that 24 hours.
For the tenant or the landlord to get back?
For the landlord to get back to us.
Okay.
And we just say, if we don't hear back from you, then we'll proceed in moving them to another property.
Okay. What about if you have multiple tenants who are interested in a property? Do you just do a first come, first serve, or is there a strategy for getting them to kind of quickly fill out the documentation that you need? Because sometimes a tenant will say, I'm interested, but the missing piece, like the income verification, is taking them like 3 days, and you got somebody else kind of knocking at the door. How do you handle that one?
So, I mean, what we do is through our leasing agents, we have them follow up and basically say there is another offer, right? So if you're interested, we need it like by... We try and do it like auction style, right? Where it's like we need it by 6 o'clock today.
Okay.
And then we package it all. And as they come in, our team summarizes, underwrites that, gets it ready. And then we send those documents to the owner and we basically say, we need an answer in 24 hours.
Yeah.
And we've had it where like owners have gotten back to us in 72 hours and they're like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to move forward. And we're like, yeah, they're gone. We just placed them in another property.
Mm-hmm. And the owners, I'm sure, always look at you like, well, what took you so long? But usually it's the landlord or owner themselves dragging their feet.
Well, and there's not much we can do, right? Like we tell them on the front end, and that's part of what we do. Like when we onboard a new owner, whether it's for management or for lease only services, we basically on the forefront, you're going to get an application. You need to make, when you get that application, you need to make a decision in 24 hours.
How do you handle investors, I don't know if you do this proactively, who say, well, I want to add an addendum to the Ontario Standard Lease because I know you guys are the pros. Like I know you guys are the pros, but my garage maintenance agreement is the best garage maintenance agreement you've ever seen. And it's a separate garage on this property. So I need them to sign off on this thing.
Well, they usually have all those surprises at the 11th hour. So like, I want to charge for the garage.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Why didn't you tell us this on the front end? Right.
Yeah, exactly. How do you handle all that stuff?
So we like it's like anything else. No one likes surprises. Tenants don't like surprises.
No.
So we tell them like, we can go with them, but they're probably going to walk. Right. Yeah, so at the 11th hour, if you're doing this, like that's not negotiating in good faith. That's actually negotiating in bad faith. Mm-hmm. Right. So on our intake forms, what we have is there anything that we have that open-ended question. Is there anything else that you need to tell us about the property?
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Right. So if it's not in there and we've done that, we're like, oh, I told you. And it's like, here's the form. There's nothing in here about, the garage. Right. So.
And then you're using the Ontario Standard Lease, I assume. Do you just use the lease as is? Do you have some favorite some clauses that you want to put in there or not? What's your
definitely don't just use the Ontario Standard Lease.
Okay.
Yeah. You need to have an addendum or an appendix to it. So our appendix is, I think it's 15 pages and it covers everything from smoking and cannabis.
Everyone says their addendums like covers everything.
Yeah. Everybody has the best.
Anyone that creates their own is like, mine's the best.
Listen, I've seen a whole bunch of addendums. I have written the platinum version.
And to be fair, they're probably 90% of all of them are probably the exact same because they're copied from one to another to another. Yeah.
But why? But you're saying that obviously for a reason. So what are some of the highlights or what?
So I bought mine. I bought mine from a paralegal who wrote it, and it was written like a paralegal.
Yeah.
And then I basically just took it's comprehensive from A to Z, and I said, I want that, I want that, and I want that. Okay. Right. So it's like, and he sells that appendix right online, and I encourage everyone, including the class that I teach here at Rockstar. The gentleman's name is Harry Fine. He was an adjudicator once upon a time at the Landlord Tenant Board, and now he's a paralegal representing just landlords. And he teaches people on how to be a landlord, and he sells this appendix. And I think it's $100. It's the best $100 you'll ever spend because it has everything. So like some of the clauses that we have in it is, how does parking work? How do utilities work? Smoking and cannabis.
Yeah, got it. So it's all very clear.
Right.
Even if it's stuff that is, some of it I'm sure is obvious, but it's just very clear when it's written down and someone has to sign off, it removes any gray area. Can save you a lot of awkward conversation, especially I'd imagine for any duplexes or legal second suite stuff. In those situations specifically, I think that stuff really matters, like garbage, who's taking it, where. I remember on one of ours, people were arguing about the garbage, like, they're putting their blue boxes too close to my blue boxes. And I was like, really? This is how we're going to spend Tuesday morning talking about blue boxes? But so that's cool.
That wasn't the pear tree house, was it?
No, this is a different house. No, this is a house where I took Aiden once. We had to collect rent in the basement. I'm like, Aiden, you got to come with me. I collected rent. I went downstairs in the basement, and we're having a little bit of a noise problem with these people in the basement. And they opened the door just a crack, which is just already suspicious. And we thought they had other people there, but we were trying to get like proof of this. And I could see a bed through a little crack that was like in the family room area that they had set up. And I put my foot and blocked them from closing the door. And I just remember, that was my advanced landlord. That's landlording.
I should teach
advanced
that. I should
landlording.
teach that in the class.
You just jam your foot right in there with your like 10-year-old son right behind you. I remember he's right behind me. And looking back at this was all stupid. I shouldn't have done that. But and I was looking in. I'm like, hey, is there anyone else living in here with you? And they're like, no. And they're trying to shove the door closed. And anyway, I ended up getting the rent and leaving. And then we found out that that's how we found out if someone wants to move people into your house, friend or family member, and they're not on the lease, that's totally fine in Ontario. And the other tenants were starting to complain about the noise because there was more people living there, but they wouldn't sign off. I think it's on an N6, a landlord tenant board, a document. I think it was an N6, like disturbance of my reasonable enjoyment in my house or whatever it was.
N5.
And is it N5? Okay, I don't know why this situation might have been an N6, but N5 for that then. So if it was an N5, I couldn't get them to sign off on it. So they were complaining that there was noise by the other tenants and their enjoyment of their house was being disturbed, but they wouldn't sign off on this document. And it turned into this kind of just like circle fest.
He said, she said.
Yeah, it was really difficult, you know? Anyway, sorry. I don't know where we were. I took us off track yet again.
I think we were talking about the lease and the addendum. So,
but you should add stick foot indoor as an advanced landlording technique, okay? This is big time.
I'll talk about that tonight. I'll talk about I'm teaching the class
that
tonight.
Class is tonight. I saw that. Yeah.
So
okay.
I'll talk about that tonight. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. Hey, no problem.
Yeah. Can you write that down on that sheet?
Yeah. No, don't. You know what? Listen, trust. You're probably, listen, I know that's super advanced. You'll remember it. Just, but if you do that, remember to wear running shoes because they're a little softer and they kind of,
What about cowboy boots like Nick has?
Cowboy boots do a good job.
With spurs.
So you know why cowboy boots are actually really good because it's thinner at the front, so you can kind of wedge it in. Where a running shoe will bend a little bit.
True.
So
it's true.
Look, if you walk around with anything with spurs, no one's going to mess with you automatically.
If you collect rent in Ontario with cowboy boots and spurs, I would say you're going to collect the rent. Like if you walk,
that there's email money transfer, you can collect rent.
I don't know, but we're old school. We used to do post-dated.
Nick's got a truck with a laptop.
You know what our biggest tech breakthrough on rent was when we discovered the bank would take our post-dated checks and deposit them for us at the beginning of every month.
They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, no, I know, but at that time, they did. It took us like 5 years to discover this, and then when we discovered it, the next year it was already like we don't do that anymore.
Just give this all to you. This is amazing.
Yeah, we're like, wait a second, we can give you all these checks and you will just deposit them, but then sometimes they would forget. It was a disaster. It was. Yeah, and then you have to go ask for your checks back, or can you deposit it? Sometimes they deposit it the wrong time.
I don't know. I forget now, but yeah.
I missed that. That was before.
You weren't missing out on much.
You weren't really missing out on much. Yeah.
I asked them to do that once. I'm like, do you do that? They're like, no. The lady looked at me like,
we haven't done that in years. Yeah. Who told you that? Well, I heard it.
What do you guys
advanced
use?
Training
transfer? Do you guys use PayProp or something to collect rent?
So we collect through our management software. So we do direct withdrawal, right? We also still have some legacy tenants that pay by e-transfer. We do have one gentleman who doesn't have a bank account and insists on paying us in cash.
Oh, wow. Those are never fun.
He also has some plants in the backyard. So,
Oh, really? He has tomatoes?
Tomatoes,
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, it's tomato sauce.
Tomato sauce season. Yeah, just a little while ago. Okay, got it.
So it's one of those. And
if you're growing marijuana plants in the backyard, I don't think your marijuana is that good. I think if you're based on Canadian temperatures and stuff like that. Now, if you have a greenhouse back there, maybe. But if you're just growing like wild marijuana,
you can never get in for some reason. He's never available.
Oh, so he has more than just in the backyard. He's got the base.
Yeah. So.
Oh gosh.
It's one of those. It's rather interesting.
Okay.
So,
now
I went to a house that was rented once. It was someone I knew, and it wasn't one of our properties. Someone we knew, but this guy was just renting this house. And I hadn't seen him in years. He was a friend of a friend, and I forget. I went with this one friend, ended up there anyways. He takes me downstairs. He's like, yeah, and watch this. And this is before marijuana was legal. And he opens up it was a wood paneling, like a secret panel.
Passageway.
It was a secret panel into this other room where he had
moved the sconces.
He had he had a bunch of plants, and you couldn't smell it in the house when you walked in initially. Like, you couldn't smell mold, couldn't smell the plants, anything. But he had a bunch of plants lying there, a little hydroponic kind of grow up for himself. I don't know how much weed he got off it or whatever.
One time in a student rental, Nick, you remember this? One student was subleasing their room, and we I guess we allowed it. I can't even remember. And I went in the middle of summer to randomly check on this house. And I opened this bedroom that they were subleasing to another student. Empty room, except for a plywood box about 3 feet, maybe 2.5 feet wide, 3.5 feet tall or so, something like that, with an extension cord coming from the top going to the plug. And this box is in the middle of the room. So I go over, it has a awkward little handle. I open this box up, one marijuana plant in there growing with a light bulb over the plant that's plugged into our wall. So I grabbed the box, I threw it outside, and I guess at this point, like, you would just get in trouble for doing that kind of shit.
Sure, you can't
and we emailed the tenant. I
don't think you would, because at that time it was illegal.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't think you would.
So I threw it outside and I emailed the tenant and said, hey, by the way, your friend's growing marijuana in our house. Please tell them to stop, and they're not welcome back here anymore. So our agreement to sublease is over.
But it was like one plant being grown with one light bulb. Like, you
sounds legit.
Yeah, back then I think we're much more organized with like leases and addendums. Back then it was kind of, I feel like it was wild.
You realize Kelly Hawks is listening to this and she's shuddering, hearing this, being like, those guys.
We tell everyone, even when Kelly's here, we tell everyone, don't listen to what we did. Listen to people like you. Like, well, here's what you're supposed. Here's best practice.
It was better then because we didn't know what to do, so you could actually get more shit done faster. You
still can, because you don't. I mean, we don't manage most of this stuff anymore, so we're not there. But which
is unfortunate, by the way.
Well, I would still. But a lot of things are just managed the same way. You just have to get it done. Like, you just. I know, and I know officially, I get it. There's these rules. You got to do it this. Look, when things are being done for the best, it tends to work out. You know what I mean? Now, if you're being a loser about things and you're trying and you're harassing someone and you're doing bad things and you're taking some of their, like, you throw the guy's marijuana plant. You didn't throw a safe that you didn't know what was in there. You know what I mean? Like you're doing the right thing anyway. No, you're not going to get in trouble.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like, what we tell our clients is that you don't want to end up at the landlord-tenant board. And what we try and do with clients and tenants that we have issues with is that we try and deal with it outside the apparatus of the landlord-tenant board, because number one, it's going to take us, 4 years to get there. And number two, once we do finally get there, you typically, like, it's not set up to be pro-landlord, right? It's set up to be, pro tenant, the big bad landlord. So we try and do, things like that. We've had issues like that where we've gone out of our way and just basically like bluff the tenant, like, you get rid of it, or, it's over 4 plants or whatever it is. Or, we can get the police involved, knowing full well that we'll call the police and they'll laugh at us and they won't show up, right? But they don't know that, right? So what we
sometimes it's just getting it. Well, you just told them.
But kind of going on to like,
save that clip and send that everywhere, Jay.
But I think, like, I don't want to put words in Nick's mouth, but one of the things that we always do in our company is I strive to, with our staff, is treat people like you want to be treated. Mm-hmm, so it's totally. You don't want to be that landlord. Like, the biggest thing when I first started, when it was just me managing my own properties, I was really sensitive about being perceived as a slumlord. I never wanted to be a slumlord. So I've always gone out of my way to go above and beyond and do what's right. So it's like putting myself in the tenant's shoes, and it's like, you don't have hot water on a Sunday and you have 2 kids, right? Because, your hot water tank with Enercare or Reliance went out. Well, you look at your phone, it's Sunday morning. Do I really want to deal with that? Well, if it were me, I'd be mad too. Mm-hmm. So why can't I pick up the phone and why can't I make that call? So for me, that's what I tell our staff to do. It's like, make the call.
Totally. That's the right. Just talking about police there for a second, I'm having flashbacks to 2 different situations we've had over the years with investors. One where somebody wasn't getting their rent collected and they drove to the person's house, and I got a phone call because was a personal friend of mine, while they were at the front door with a baseball bat with the door open looking to collect rent. I don't know if you remember that one, Nick, and I was like, dude, stand down. Like, you need to back away from the situation right now. And another time in a 12-unit building where someone I know was trying to get out. I think they were like dealing meth or something out of one of these apartments and disturbing the other people. And this person was trying to do the right thing, and they had just had enough. The other tenants were complaining in this apartment building, and they had literally just hit their max. So they jumped in a car, picked up his cousin and his brother-in-law, both big boys, and started driving to the apartment building and called me on the way. And I had to arrange a call with them and a paralegal to explain to them, because they were going to go there and get themselves in a bad situation. Mm-hmm. So I had the paralegal explain to them legally how they were going to like end up in jail in about 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. And luckily we got them to kind of stand down and turn the car around and go home. So I'm like, sometimes people's emotions on both sides, tenants and landlords, just get absolutely out of control.
Absolutely.
And it's just better to go through we all complain about the Tenant Act in Ontario and the Landlord Tenant Board, but you know what? Relative to other places, it's kind of good that we have this thing. I know there's problems and, rent increases are capped in an inflationary environment and stuff like that. But some of the stuff actually works.
Yeah. And even and I know it's very common for people to label it as pro landlord and pro tenant. And I guess in a lot of ways it can be, but in a lot of ways it's equal. It doesn't really, it's more in the he said, she said situations. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those situations, landlords aren't perfect. There's terrible tenants. There's a small percentage of tenants that are really bad tenants, and there's a small percentage of landlords that are really bad landlords as well.
Absolutely.
And we hear about them both, and and I guess I do think it kind of leans more towards the tenant, but it's not like you can't. Evicting for non-payment of rent, particularly, is usually a pretty straightforward process, unless there's the property's in state of disrepair and this, and I get it. There are these small number of cases where it is a professional tenant and that type of stuff. But overall, the problem with it is, to me, the bigger problem with the Landlord Tenant Board is the wait times. Right?
Yeah.
It's a mess.
That freaks me out just about government stuff. How do we spend
just
all
no
this money
in anything?
Yeah, it's we spend all this money in this province and in this country, and we have the basics like healthcare, transportation, tenant. We have all these fundamental things where I'm where is our money actually going? To this day, I still don't know, 2.5 years after this pandemic started, do we have a net extra bed in Ontario? And do we have a net extra nurse? One. I don't know this number.
Yeah.
If you talk to people in the nursing industry, they're going to tell you no way because they're all.
But how is that not a number that the media would not be reporting on? I don't understand.
Well, look at right now, the Tylenol shortage, the kids' Tylenol. To try to alleviate it right now.
Alev's another brand.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool the way you did that. Hey, dude, that was really good.
I own stock in
Aleve?
Yeah.
He's here all week, isn't he? Tip your waitresses.
But to deal with it, one of the things I just saw recently is they're going to allow some to come in without the French labels on it. Right. So that's what the government, that's the big government thing that they're doing. And I'm so that's what you're doing to solve this problem. You think that's going to be.
And that's been part of our delay that we can't get French labels fast enough on these
I don't know
bottles.
how much of the delay, but they're saying there's just that way. There's no stopping the import because there's new labels or something. And those are the ones going to the hospitals. And I'm this is what the government's working on. I mean, they bought how many extra vaccines that no one cares about, tens of millions, and we can't get some Tylenol. Do a trade.
So the tenant board stuff, it would just be nice to get that solved. Come on. They've
been talking about it for years. Now, Kelly did say that they're finally, and I did see some numbers from the tenant board that they're not, this is almost
they're not as far behind.
They're not falling further behind. So the amount of cases.
They're patting themselves on the back.
So
they got rid of the fax machine, right?
Yeah.
They retired it.
Yeah. But I think it was last month, September or October. I'm pretty sure it was September. The number of new cases being dealt were just above the number of new cases being kind of requested. So they're not falling further behind. And they are Kelly did say that she felt they were actually making progress finally in hiring and stuff like that. Remember, I don't know when we were speaking to her last time she was on here. Yeah. So I don't know if that's true. I don't know where that sits now. That could all be, gone. She'll
be back soon, actually. So we'll get an update on that.
It's a tough job. We've used Kelly on a few cases, and I'm so grateful for having someone like that can navigate our clients through that process, because it's a frustrating process. And then you go through it. We had one in a student rental where it's we had a student with multiple personality disorder. Nobody knew.
No way.
We were able to get him out. And then another student sued myself and the owner of the student rental because this kid killed his goldfish. So somehow we were responsible. And
come on,
what did they
see for 99 cents?
Oh, it was like there was a laundry list of things, and we had to go for 4 hours at the Landlord Tenant Board with Kelly, wasting our time. And we were found, obviously, you
were found not guilty of the goldfish murder, of the murder.
There you go, right?
But why didn't you give them a $5 gift card to PetSmart and say, go get another goldfish? No?
I think it was a matter of principle. There's a whole laundry list of things, and it was just 4 hours of your life you're never going to get back. So I think, going back to the whole Landlord Tenant Board, what we always advise our clients to do, to go there, because as a property manager, I can't represent you at the board, right? So we have to refer it to a paralegal. And like that's time that you're not going to get back. And I think we all know you can easily go and make more money, but on the time front, you're not going to get that back.
No.
So if you can find ways to make, and I've done it, cash for keys and made arrangements for, this isn't working, we're going to go our separate ways. Like, we'll agree to end the tenancy, and in consideration, we'll give you X, like same kind of deal, right? Find ways to find solutions that doesn't involve the board. It'll make your life a whole lot easier.
Yeah, you're right. Try to take the emotion out of it, right? And that's where you have to take the emotion out of it to do that, because if you just sometimes you base it on just the principle, and you're going to be completely in the right.
Yep.
And but you have to just swallow it, and just to allow things to move on at a quicker pace, which sucks. Yep. It sucks to have to do that sometimes, because from an emotional standpoint, you're like, no, screw this and screw them. Yeah. I'm in the right here. Why should I be doing this? But it's just the way the world works, right? Yeah. You just if you want to move on, you got to be the bigger person and go deal with bigger problems, get this one handled and move on.
And sometimes you don't have a choice. So in this case, the tenant brought a tenant application against myself, the company, and the owner. And we just had to go and sit through it, right?
Oh,
and it was just like, it was a complete and utter waste of time. And I commend the owner for having sat there and stomached it. And we built a case, and like I said, but you don't have that choice. So sometimes and even a week out, the owner was in communication with that tenant to basically be like, I'll give you this, right? I'll give you money, knowing full well that she was in the right if you drop this today. And the student wouldn't. And he's like, okay, well, so he could have got, I forget how much it was, but he could have got money just to let it go, and he ended up getting nothing.
Sometimes it's the advice they're getting as well, because we're involved in a situation right now through the brokerage. So these things come up, and it was just a transaction, didn't close, variety of reasons, whatever. But it looked like there was a pretty easy settlement to be had. And it seemed like there was very close to this all being taken care of, and everyone's like, okay, I wish this didn't happen, but if this settlement takes place, okay, good enough, we'll move on. Then all of a sudden, one of the parties went to a different paralegal, got moved on from his lawyer, whatever lawyer he was using, and went to a paralegal. And this paralegal just drew a hard line in the sand. And, we heard from other legal representatives now, they're like, oh, this guy's just tough to deal, just unreasonable, always willing to deal with, a pain in the butt to deal with. And now they're just, from what the settlement was about, this guy thinks they can get so much more, and they're just like, it's just a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah. But the person doesn't know that this paralegal is just wasting everybody's time,
but he's billing and he's court.
He's just running up the bill.
Yeah, right? Totally.
Yeah. So there's, and they don't know. I'm not saying that they don't know. And it's just like, they hear a big number. It's no different. I mean, it's just every industry. I mean, one of the first properties that I ever sold as an investment property was a flip. And when the realtor came, I ended up listing it with the guy that gave me the highest. He's like, oh, I think I could sell it for this price, which was, whatever, $20,000 higher than anyone else said. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that's the number I want.
We didn't know that was just the most basic realtor trick to get you to list with them.
Yeah, a week and a half after listing it, he's like, hey, I think we listed too high. We got to drop it by 20 grand. I'm like, what?
What the hell? Wow, I didn't really.
And you're signed up for 90 days.
Yeah. 9 years.
So I learned that one the hard way.
Yeah, but anyway, you were going on because what happened with that? Is that why you said that?
No,
God,
that's ongoing. These things get every time there's another date, it gets pushed out so long.
So Jay, once you check the income, we're way back to just getting the check.
What was the original question?
How do you screen for tenants? We need 8 hours together to get through it. So you check income, that all comes back. You underwrite the deal. The landlord approves. You move the tenant into the house. Yep. You're deducting rent by pulling out of their account, because you're getting the tenants to sign off saying you're allowing the direct debit
withdrawal,
direct withdrawal to happen on the account. Mm-hmm. That's the way you guys do rent collection. And then for your clients, how do they get their rent? Is there a time of a month, a certain number of days after you get it? What's the system there?
Yeah, so we pay by direct deposit. I think if we did e-transfers, we'd be sending e-transfers all month. So we pay by direct deposit. So basically, usually between the 5th and the 7th of the month, we're sending the statement, and then we're initiating the transfer of funds. And then from there, it's usually 2 to 3 business days for them to get it. So usually by the 10th of the month, depending on weekends and that, they have their
rent's dropping in. Yep. And then what are you seeing in these areas? Because we started talking about kind of slower times are between, now we're recording this kind of mid-November till the end of the year, or end of January is kind of the slowest time for people moving. Yep. And you said you listed out the 4 criteria: location, pictures, copy, and 4th was price. Mm-hmm. What are you seeing on price more generally, not during like a slow rental period, but just in general in Ontario right now? What are you seeing on rents? Have they stabilized? Because they peaked really high. Have they coming down a little bit, stabilizing? Where are we on rents?
I mean, I couldn't believe like in the summer, some of the rents that we were asking.
It was astronomical.
It was insane, right? Like,
so let me ask it this way. Where are rents compared to like 3 or 4 years ago? Where are we now, to give everyone a picture? Not against the highest of the highs in the summer, because I'd imagine that peak didn't maintain. Yeah. Where are we in rents from?
So I think about 3 years ago, like we would say, like on a main floor unit, we've probably gone up $600 to $700.
So what is the actual dollar amount?
So I think about 3 years ago for a main floor, we were renting it for about $1,700.
Okay.
Plus utilities.
And now it's like 23.
Now it's anywhere between 23 and 25.
And that's for a 3-bedroom main floor of a house. Exactly. in Hamilton or in the Niagara region, or Hamilton.
Yeah, Hamilton, Niagara's probably a couple $100 less. Okay. I would say not by much, right? Depending on there's factors and stuff. Just broad.
Okay, and if you had to give me the same ballpark for a basement of 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms or something,
probably 2 bedroom. It's more popular. So we're at about, I would say 3 years ago we were probably at about 13.
Okay.
And now we're at about 18. So we're
18,
about $500 more.
Okay. So you're at 4,000. You're just over
roughly about 4,000.
4,000 or so for a house that you're renting out as 2 suites.
Yeah. And then what's that? It would roughly be about 3,000 3 years ago. So it's gone up $1,000.
Jeez. When you think of it that way.
And the other interesting thing, like, I mean, I'm sure like people that are posting on the different Facebook groups and on Marketplace, it's like the tenants are in uproar. They're like greedy landlord, this and that. And
sure,
you know, you're gouging us.
And I could see their point.
Of us. Yeah, absolutely. And I do too. Right. And it's like, so like we moderate a couple of the rental groups, one in St. Catharines, one in Hamilton. And it's like, it's nasty in there. And it's like, as the admin, like I get people all the time. It's like, you know, like they're like, you know, viciously attacking the landlord. And at the end of the day, I'm like, you know, and I feel bad. And it's like, I basically have just taken a hard line. If you're going to take personal attacks, you're out.
Yeah.
Right. Like we don't need that. And people don't need that. It's like, it sucks. Right. What they fail to realize is that investor bought that house and is trying to provide housing for them, but they bought it at the peak of the market. Like they bought it for like $800,000-900,000. Like we all know what those
it's
numbers
funny
were.
You're bringing this up because we're just writing an article for Rockstar members about how in a free market prices are basically a representation of an exchange ratio between goods. You know, you have milk, I have apples. We decide that you want some apples and I want some milk, and we come out like with an exchange, 1 quart of milk for like an apple or whatever it is. And as an economy gets more complex, sometimes there's a middle thing in the middle. We call that money, and that money is just representing an exchange ratio at a really efficient manner between all these different things in an economy. That's basically what money is. But we live in a world right now where the price of that middle thing that we call money is determined by a central bank that just throttles the price higher. It's more expensive by increasing interest rates or lowering it. And what happens is the whole economy then goes out of whack because when they just throttle it down aggressively for no good reason, then property prices go way up and rents have to go up because, you know, if you jam more and more people into an area like Canada has, and you throttle the price of interest rates down for 10 years, you've just introduced a manipulated economic signal that throws everybody into hysterics. And then if you go the other way like they have now, and you're like, oh shit, you know what? It's not low anymore. It's going to be relatively super high. And we go the other way, then you get everybody in the real estate market going, what the hell? I got these mortgages, and by the way, what's a trigger rate? You know, like are these things coming up? And it's because we have this market where we have people introducing regulation and controls without understanding the impacts in the market. They're just trying to save their ass. And it's just unfortunate. It creates this society where people are like nipping at each other's buds and they don't realize why they are. It's just the tenant hates the landlord. They don't understand that like they're playing this game that is being manipulated by people, and it's producing an emotional response because everyone's like, I can't afford my groceries. I can't afford rent. Like, what the hell's going on?
It's also stupid to think that that one policy is the correct policy for the entire country of Canada. Like, it makes zero sense. right? So between what's happened in Alberta over the last few years versus what's happened in Vancouver and Toronto, so-called, instead of Alberta, use Calgary versus Vancouver and Toronto or Montreal or Halifax.
Yeah, exactly.
You need different policies in different places. And I realize
it's a complex market.
Yeah. So to start doing these things on that, there's certain things
like Toronto should have been slowed down, but we didn't probably need to slow down Calgary or Edmonton at all.
That would have been a problem back then, right? Now because the prices here have gone up so much, there's more demand there from a lifestyle perspective because the affordability is much better there, right? But when that changes, then what? So it's just there's always. Yeah, it goes back to the centralized. When something is centralized, when the control is centralized, like what you were talking about, there's just a lot of challenges with it, and you're seeing them just in the last 2.5, 3 years. It just makes it very crystal clear to everyone what these challenges are when we've been in a relatively smooth period for so long because of some of the things that were going on.
But the vast majority of people don't understand where these challenges ultimately come from. They don't understand it ultimately comes from the way the economy is being managed. So what they do is Jay's group, they're in a Facebook group somewhere just pointing fingers at each other.
Yeah, but talk to anyone that works in a call center. So talk to someone that works at, Rogers Wireless call center. As you don't think those people deal with people that think they're the enemy. The person in the call center is the reason their bill is higher, or is the reason their phone's not working. Yeah. People will only go one level deep. No one goes the majority of people don't go deep in anything. So they're just it's the call center person. You think the call center person doesn't want to fix your problem to get you off the phone so you're not screaming at them, dummy.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
Just going back to nurses, we were talking with someone in here, Jay, about just how much Canadian nurses get kind of poached or attempted to be recruited outside of Canada into the States because they get paid so much. And I'm like, wait a second, again, we pay all this tax. Why are we not just paying nurses way more than we're paying nurses? Why are we not what are we doing?
Get a line by line budget, explanation of where all the money in healthcare goes, and then I'll tell you exactly why.
I sold a student rental with my brother-in-law, maybe I guess 10 years ago now, and I had to pay the capital gains tax on that. And when I saw that check amount, that I was writing the government. Yeah. I'm like, this. It was for me, it was an absolutely a huge amount to be in one shot giving the government on the sale of one property that they, by the way, had nothing to do with. But I'm Canadian and I pay my taxes and I paid the taxes and I thought that probably is going to fill half of one pothole in this city. Yeah. That's where that tax money is going to go. It's going to fill. It was actually a provincial tax, so it probably didn't even go to the freaking city. Who knows what I got for that money?
But do you remember when they canceled?
Nothing.
You live in Oakville. There's no potholes here.
No, there are potholes.
Oh, there's potholes. Yeah,
there are potholes in Oakville. But you're right. Hamilton, way more potholes.
Yeah. Drive down Barton Street.
Yeah, potholes everywhere.
I don't know what we were talking about. I think I was talking to a teacher, so not affected by the strike because a teacher, not a support worker in the schools. And we were talking about kind of what was going on with the teacher strike or the union strike. I don't know if support workers, education workers. Yeah, I didn't know what the right term was there. And I'm like, it seems ridiculous that, this in today's world, a 2.5%, or I think for some people it's a 1.5% raise. I mean, that's tough with inflation where it is. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
They should be making more money. But I think everyone needs to sit down and say, hey, here's how much money we have. Where are we going to take it from on both sides and come up with a longer term solution instead of kicking the can down the road every 2 years? And then what we came up with, what we were thinking about, I was like, do you remember when they canceled that gas plant and it was in South Mississauga and it wasn't the cost for almost $1 billion?
Something astronomical. I forget what it was.
Think of how much waste we have. Yeah. Just think of how much waste. Think of that $1 billion. What's the raises that we could give the nurses and the education workers now, right? There's just there's every year or every couple of years there's always stories of this. Not these small. There's a number of stories with small waste, but there's always a big one that comes out, and you're just like, what the hell?
I don't know if there's any truth to this, but did you hear about the hotel cost for somebody who went to was it the Queen's funeral or something?
Yeah, it was Trudeau,
$6,000 a night or something. Yeah,
and they won't say who
stayed in there. I'm like, who was spending $6,000 a night of Canadian taxpayer dollar to sleep?
Didn't we go with the largest delegation there too and stuff?
I think we went to the largest delegation for that climate change thing they had in Scotland.
Yeah,
I think there was something in
else.
Scotland, and Canada had the largest delegation.
So is this part of the tenant screening, or is this the
Yeah,
or
you're
tenant
right, Jay.
board?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. See what
Jay,
happened? We're basically
there's bigger
saying,
problems in the world we need to discuss.
Yes.
Okay.
When we hear landlords and tenants arguing, we know they're arguing over the bigger issues in the world, Jay.
Look, a way to tie it all together.
So right now, I know your team is growing.
Can you rent out a basement for $6,000 a month? That's the more important
Yeah.
question.
I've been asked to. Don't worry.
Yeah, but-
I've said I don't think we can get that much, but we'll sure try.
So what? So map out for everyone geographical area. What types of properties do you manage? Size of your team? Give us the summary.
Yeah. So I think I said earlier. So we are in the Hamilton Niagara region. We only operate in those regions. That's where I have my own properties. So I know those areas well, and that's where I started the company. So we've been around since 2016, and I have a team of 6, including myself. We have multiple leasing agents, maintenance coordinator, property manager, onboarding operations, and then we just hired a couple maintenance techs. So we hired 2 full-time maintenance techs.
Awesome.
To work with us, right, to give us some some ability to try and control some costs, because like we had the big conversation about controlling costs. What we were finding is the elusive handyman is always the hardest to recruit, and what we were finding is that they were just not showing up. They were expensive. They were not reliable. So we decided that we were just going to control that. We're going to control the price. We're going to control the cost, the availability, and
that's a big decision.
It was. We didn't know if we would have the work for them, and we have the work for 2, which is great. And when we communicated that to our owners, we're like, we're doing this like in your best interest, because at the end of the day, what we do each and every day is about owners, right? It's about making them profitable. It's not about making Welcome Home profitable. And I always equate it to this. Like, if you're cash flowing, you're profitable. If you're profitable, you're happy. And if you're happy, you're likely going to buy another property. And if you buy another property, we hope that we have the opportunity to work together. So we did it that way. And what we do is basically, our portfolio is a mix of single family, duplexes, triplexes, and then we've gotten into multi. So we have a few small multis.
You have now. Got it. Okay.
So, but it's every day is a learning experience. Like, going into duplexes, triplexes, we're like, oh, we got this. And we got like our first couple multis, we're like, whoa, this is like
totally different.
It's a totally different animal, right? But, I think we've gotten the hang of it, like, and we continue to grow. And I think like the biggest thing that we try and do is just, we want to be different. We want to be customer focused and customer centric. And with property management, it's a tough racket. And, I've told the story before on how I got started with mine. And if you go on my website, you can hear the story and read the story about how I got into property management. And it was one of those stories that hired a property manager, right? Spent more time managing the property manager. It sucked. And I just vowed to do differently. So what I've done, and I'm really fortunate with the team that I've built, because they're the ones that are doing the heavy lifting. They've done a lot of the heavy lifting in helping grow and scale the business, and providing a great customer experience for both our owners and our tenants.
Yeah, cool. Jay, thanks for being here. Nick and I got up to, we started a property management company way back, and we got up to like 34 doors, and I think we broke, or 36 doors.
I forget how many it was.
There's a long story, and there's a big story.
Long story
there.
Good story. Good story.
It's a funny story.
It's
a good story. I think it worked out for everyone in the best way possible. But so congrats, because you're doing a lot of great stuff, and we know this is not easy work, man. So thanks for everything you do for managing people's properties. You teach the class here at Rockstar. Thanks for handling Rockstar members the way that you've been handling them. Really, really appreciate this, man. Thank you. We always get tons, which shocks me that a property management class here at Rockstar can get such positive reviews, but your class, no joke, gets always an amazing response.
Wait till you add the foot in the door now, man. It's just going
when
to
you
get better and better.
Cowboy boots with foot in the door strategy.
It's online tonight, so I don't know how I'm going to slide that in. I might have to get the foot up there.
Yeah, you'll get it in there. Jay, and the URL for anyone to reach you is?
Yeah, absolutely. welcomehomepm.ca, and you can go on there. Everything is on there, our story, our background, even our pricing. So we put our pricing up there in terms of what we charge. And we do full-scale management as well as we do tenant placement. So if you're just looking for tenant placement, we can definitely help you. We help a lot of repeat business and repeat members do that. And then we can do full-scale management as well.
Cool. WelcomeHomePM.ca. Jay Shaw, thanks, man. Really appreciate this.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Term show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.